So today we are going to learn how to go from standard form to vertex form or complete the square. So for us to do this, there are certain things that we need to know first. We need to know our A, our H, and our K. And we also need to know that H and K are coordinates on our equation. So how can we do this? How can we find the vertex form or complete the square? So we can achieve this by doing just 3 steps. So the first step that we have to do is factor the first coefficient on the x term, x squared term. And by the way, this will give us our a. This is gonna give us our a. We can find h by dividing b over 2. And then last we can find our k by setting whatever we have inside the bracket, x minus h, we set it equal to 0. And then after we find our x, we can find our corresponding y value, which is k, by plugging in the x that we found inside the quadratic function. And we can see here that our x here is our h, and our y here is our k. So they are coordinates on the graph itself. So here is an exercise that we have. So our first step is to factor the first coefficient, and the first coefficient is 2. So if we're going to factor the first coefficient as 2, we need to divide everything by 2. So we're going to have x squared plus 2x minus 5. And recall that this is going to give us our a, and our a here is going to be 2. Now, the next thing that we need to find is our h, and h is, we can find h by dividing b over 2, and our b here, as you can see, it's 2. So simply if we divide b over 2, which is 2 over 2, it's gonna give us 1. So we found h to be 1. The third and the last step is to set x minus h equal to 0. But we need to recall our form. Our form right now is, so remember that the vertex form is in the form of a x minus h, all this is squared plus some k. Based on everything that we have found so far, our a is 2, our x is just x, and then our h is 1, so it's going to be plus 1. Don't forget to square it, and then some plus k. So that's our rule that we have found so far. This is how our the vertex form looks like. So if you want to find k, we need to set whatever we have inside here equal to 0. So this is x minus h. So x plus 1 equals to 0. This just means x equals to minus 1. Now what we can do is sub in our x value inside our y function, our quadratic function. We simply just evaluate this, and we are going to get minus 12, and that's going to be our k value. So our final form will be y equals, of course we know that our a is 2, then our h is 1, and our k is minus 12. And that's going to be our final answer. So this is how you complete the square. We have a second exercise. You can pause the video and try this out. Our first thing that we need to do is factor out the first coefficient, which is 5. Our second step is finding h. We simply divide b by 2. Our b here is minus 4. So our h is going to be minus 2. And the last step that we need to do is, of course, before we do anything, we need to just recall we found a to be 5, and x minus h, in this case it's minus 2. H is minus 2. And then there is some k, we need to find k. But for us to find k, we need to find the corresponding x value. And the x value here is, we need to set this equal to 0 to be able to find it. And so our x here is going to be 2 after just simple solving. And now we need to find the corresponding y value, which is the k. So we plug in our 2 inside our function, and then we simply evaluate, and this is going to give us 30. So our k here is 30, and then we check our final form. We just write it down. So x minus 2 plus 30, and this is our final answer. That's how we complete the square. You can pause the video and try this one, otherwise we can continue. For this one, it's the same thing. We factor out the first coefficient, and that's going to be 2. If we divide everything by 2 inside, we will have x squared plus 6x plus 5.5, and our a here is 2. And now the second thing is finding h. We take the b and we divide it by 2, we're gonna have 3. So our h is 3. And now we need to recall our form. Now we set x plus 3 equals to 0 minus 3. And it's essentially the same thing as h, because h is our x value, so we need to find the corresponding y value to that. And to find this, we need to plug in the x value inside our quadratic function. And if we did this, we're gonna get minus 7. So our complete final square form is gonna be x plus 3. All of this is squared minus 7. And that's our final answer. We factor out the first coefficient and we divide everything by that coefficient. So we will have minus 9x here. If we divided 2 by 3, we're gonna get 0.6, roughly like 6.7. So our a here is 3. And so finding h, we take minus 9, we divide it by 2. That's gonna be minus 4.5. We found our h. And so our last one is we need to recall, just to make sure that we know how our form looks like. So we can pull out whatever we have and set it equal to 0 to be able to find the k value later on. So here x is going to equal 4.5 after setting x minus 4.5 equal to 0. And so we plug in 4.5 inside our quadratic function to know what that corresponds to, and we find it to be 62.75. So our final form, complete the square form of this, is going to look like this. Plug in the value of k that we found, and this is our final answer. Thank you for watching, and consider subscribing for more.